Everybody got advice, ain't really work for me. Tell me go see a therapist, it ain't work for me. Tried to put me on the meds, didn't numb the hurt for me. Drown myself in a drink, didn't quench the thirst for me. Everything they was telling me to become ain't really.
Welcome back to the Mentally Shredded Show. I'm your host, Christopher Whedon, and today we have a special guest and friend with us today, my buddy Jim Shields. Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Chris. Yeah, happy to be here.
Let's start off by sharing who you are with the audience, and then we'll just dive into the conversation.
Sure. So, Christian, first and foremost, I'm a dad, love my kids, and I think that those are the two most important roles that I have in the world. You know, I grew up in a fairly rough environment, but today I have the privilege of, I've been a realtor, fundraiser, entrepreneur. Grew up on food stamps, if we remember what those are, the early days of EBT. Grew up on food stamps, went through two branches of the military, went Navy, then Army. Later became an entrepreneur, sold my first company to a Fortune 500, which opened a ton of doors into the corporate world, which was a whole mystery to me growing up. That was something that other people did. And when those doors opened, I embraced it. And really by selling that company, sort of by accident, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that, those stories and how that all happened. But, a lot of work, not realizing what I was actually building until it was built and somebody wanted it. And then when that happened, it opened a ton of doors and put me in rooms that I didn't imagine myself in growing up. So who am I? I'm an entrepreneur who believes in the human side of business as the key to success in business. And so I live every day to try to say, all right, how do we incorporate the human side of business to achieve the goals, whether you're the CEO and the founder or the newest person on the payroll?
I have not heard that before. The human side of business to achieve the goals. See, this is why we had to have Jim on, and you'll understand how he's different than other business owners, entrepreneurs, people that have scaled, sold companies. Jim is approaching it first and foremost. You said, hey, I'm a man of faith. I'm a Christian. I'm a father. You said those two things first, while most people would have talked about all of the accolades first. And then they maybe would have sprinkled in, oh, by the way.
I'm a dad, yeah.
I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
When you were growing up as a kid, you already alluded to this. You mentioned this earlier, that you never imagined what you would have accomplished, coming from the small town that you came from. What was that experience like growing up in a small town as a small town kid myself, being around, poverty? Why were you different? Why were you able to leave and go accomplish so many things?
And to completely set the record straight, grew up in Pennsylvania, military, bounced around, went overseas. And then I spent over 20 years in Kentucky as an adult. So grew up in Pennsylvania, small town, mostly dairy communities, bounced around a lot. And without getting into a lot of, we would take the whole episode to go through all of the changes in my life. But somebody asked me this years ago, and I had the privilege of working as the chief development officer of an organization called Boys and Girls Haven, helping at-risk youth in Kentucky. And as people would ask me all the time, what was the difference between you, and these kids that are still struggling? What was the difference? And as the more and more I thought about it, it was the same thing that helped me succeed in business. And I boiled it down to three things: grit, gratitude, and great people, right? So grit, meaning that no one's doing your push-ups for you. Like, you have to do the hard stuff. And as many people as help you in your life, at the end of the day, you have to do the push-ups. No one's coming to rescue you. You don't get stronger by other people swimming your laps, right? Doing spending the extra hours studying. They don't do the studying and you get smarter. You have to do the work and do the work. Gratitude, be grateful for it all. And that one's a one that I think we all struggle with from time to time. And the more I focus on gratitude, the easier it gets to be grateful for even the most simple things. And people accuse me of being deep all the time. It's really not depth, it's great gratitude, right? And then really the key was great people in my life. When you look around, and what's crazy is so many people say, oh, I didn't have that. I contend that we all have great people in our life, but what we focus on expands. So if we walk around saying, oh, I just know a bunch of negative people. Guess what we see? When we start to look at, hey, there's great people out there, and I'm really going to focus on finding them. They've always been there, I think, and they start to show up more and more. So I really, when people ask me that, great gratitude and great people. And I had so many people that sowed into my life that never knew what the outcome would be. And I give a speech where I go through a list of different people and the anecdotal stories of how they helped me. So what was the answer? Great gratitude and great people. And I didn't know to call it that until later in life, but that was really it.
Wow. I love that. Grit, gratitude, and great people. The grit, I resonate with all three, but here's why. With grit, you said no one was going to come save me. And I remember repeating that to myself. I remember feeling like,
Mm,
Chris, you're going to have to climb out of this dark hole that you've put yourself in, right? Because
right.
we're a product of our decisions. And so as long as I take ownership and say, okay, well, I'm the common denominator in everything that I've experienced up to this point, I need to figure out how to do the work. What is that going to look like?
Hmm.
That grit, that determination to just keep showing up, even when you don't see results, even when it's painful, right? That's the grit
Right.
piece. The gratitude piece, it's interesting. This year is when I started journaling every day something that I was grateful for. Affirmations, I've done that for years. That's easy. But writing what I was actually thankful for and grateful for that
Mm,
specific day, that took a little bit more work, because when you do the practice of doing this daily, as I couldn't just keep writing the same things. I had to find and dig deeper. I had to say, like, okay, what am I grateful for today? What positive thing happened today? What can I take from that? So I love that piece. And then the great people. I've been surrounded by so many amazing, influential people throughout my life. Some of them on social media have no idea who I am, right? Some of them in person, and I'm grateful for each and every one of them that came alongside me, even when they didn't know that they were pouring into me. Right? Great people, 100%. I love that recipe. That's a recipe for success.
yeah, absolutely. And I can go deeper on any of those if you want. But
Yeah, please.
the gratitude, when people, like, if I tell people all the time, if you forget every other guru that's out there and everything they're doing to teach you, gratitude, if you did that, and I had an old preacher a long time ago, he said, if you had 24 hours to list everything you're grateful for, and tomorrow you lost what you didn't list forever, right? How small could you make that? The hair on your head, the eyesight, the grass that grows, and all of the little things that we just don't, we take for granted, we pass over every day. And once you really start to dig, and the longer you do that, it's like you look around, and I remember somebody, probably Les Brown, talking about just gratitude. And when you look around, and like, you can be grateful for just about everything. And I remember, and I can get into a specific story of when that really hit me. Growing up, and there's a lot of stories, but I was physically abused and sexually abused growing up. So it was easy to focus on those things. You carry a chip on your shoulder for a long time. And you carry that into your adult life. And even though you're succeeding, there's there's sort of this uh, dark spot underneath that you're always carrying with you, that weight on your back. And I remember this moment, we're climbing a mountain in Nevada. So you go from desert floor to 12,000 feet. And essentially it got to a moment where it looked like I was not going to make it off that mountain. And I remember hitting my knees, praying, God, take care of my family. This is it. I guess this is, and I that was it. And then I stood up and I looked down the mountain, and coming up the switchbacks was this lone hiker, randomly. There's no cell phone service. You're out in the middle of nothing. And turns out he's a cardiac surgeon, and he had everything in his bag that I needed. And I knew in that moment, okay, God's listening. And it was funny that, still, not to make this a preaching thing, but it was that moment, it was like, forgive them. And I realized the next morning, so after I was recovered and we finished the trek the next morning, um, it was like, forgive them. And where that comes to gratitude, because I used to say, great gratitude, be grateful for it all, even the stuff that sucks. And I legitimately changed that after that moment to especially the stuff that sucks, because I realized that all of the hard stuff that I came through it. And now I get to use that to help other people to realize, hey, where you are, you don't have to stay stuck. And that goes back to the great people, being able to stand in the gap for somebody. Had you not gone through it, there's no credibility in that. But when you've gone through some really, really tough stuff, when you see somebody going through something very similar, you're able to be there for them and offer them solutions from a place of experience. So when I look at be grateful for it all, especially the stuff that sucks, because what a privilege that we've been able to come through it and be stronger on the other side of it if we choose to see the gratitude in it rather than the problem itself. And it's very tough when you're in it. But looking back, when you go, man, I'm grateful that I went through that, because now I get to use that for helping other people or to strengthen my own life and lessons in my own life. When I'm going through something tough, I'm like, man, I've been through all this other stuff. This is a layup, right, compared to that. So, but it takes a shift in mindset and how we view it.
That's literally what I was about to say. It is the perspective shift, right? I built everything from the beginning in anger, because I struggling with anxiety, depression, I had sexual abuse as well, right? Like there was all of these things from childhood that if you callous your mind, like David Goggins says, right?
Right.
It took me to a place where it was like, cool, I've created this monster now. Nothing can hurt me. Well, the issue I ran into was I wanted to heal. I didn't want to hold it anymore. And so now everything that I had been holding on to had to resurface so that I could actually forgive and heal and move forward. That process was very painful for me. And that's how Mentally Shredded was birthed, because I was so broken that I was like, I don't know what to do. And then once I went to therapy, and once I again started surrounding myself with the right people and all of the things, I was able to get on the other side of it and become this shredded version where we can have these type of conversations. And I heard something, I was watching Ted Lasso, great film, great show. And one of the characters said to his son, he said, forgive them. That is the biggest way for you to move forward, the biggest way to success, the biggest FU, if you will, is to forgive them and move forward. And when you hear that, especially when you're in it, it's so hard to see. But as you mentioned already, it's so worth it, because once you get to the other side, it's not baggage you have to carry, because you don't have to carry it forever.
That's it. And I think that's the part that I struggle with. It's like, you just said it, like it's baggage that you carry. I think about like those 3 people that had abused me in the different ways. They didn't care. One had passed away. Like, how could I ever, like, if you're looking for them to go, when you say, hey, for them to apologize, it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. They are not carrying it. You are. That's not affecting their life. It's affecting your life. So it's legitimately forgiving someone else. And it sounds so cliche, but it's so true. You give that gift to yourself of forgiving someone else, because it doesn't matter what their response to it is. You may not get the response you want, and that's okay, right? Just forgive them, because you put the baggage down and you get to carry on without the weight of that event or events in your life. And yeah, that's so true, right? And it's funny. I know that we talk about business because it affects every area of our life. So whether I was going to be an artist, a pilot, or a business person, right? We carry that into every relationship, whether it's business or personal or everything else. When we learn to look back, forgive, it affects in a positive way every one of those relationships. So, I look at my relationships with people in business. Being able to read people in the room has made me sharper in the boardroom. But it also helps me to empathize with somebody who is trying to show up to work but has a sick spouse at home or a kid or dealing with. So being able to look at it from that perspective, you still have to meet the financials, right, we're obligated to that. We made a commitment to that company to do the work for the money. But at the same time, we have to look at the human side of business. And when you come from a place where you're like, I've been there, it makes it that much easier to make those decisions and be there as human beings, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
think that's the missing piece we see in businesses that, like Patagonia, for example, right?
mhm.
Sustainable. They care about
Yep.
people. They care about the environment. Um, that's one that always pops up and comes up for me is because they did things differently. And I'm sure when they were starting out, people were like, it's never going to work. But look at them now, right? So,
Sure. Yeah. And you, again, we still have to be good stewards, right? We have to do the business, do the hard things. But at the end of the day, if there's no consideration of taking care of one another, I mean, that's kind of the point, right? I was thinking about this morning. It- there's so much people talk about dishonesty in business. Well, the sales guy or the salesperson, they're lying to, and you look at, well, the consumer's lying to the salesperson. And it got me thinking, like, where did that pattern start? And I don't know that we can probably go back to ancient to really think about that. But the reality is there used to be a time in this country, and maybe I'm being too optimistic here, but when you would shake a person's hand and this was the deal, and if things didn't go perfect, what was the most important part of that transaction was the integrity of that handshake, and that I said I was going to deliver something, whether you were the customer or the business, and you were going to deliver that. If I'm hiring an employee, this is the agreement. The employee agrees to so many hours for so much work, and the company agrees to pay so much for this, right? There's that return. And then whether it's a customer relationship, where did the integrity go, right? And it would be so, I don't know. I'd love to think we can get back to that place where we have integrity in business, where we do what we say we're going to do, even if it costs us a little bit, right? Because we're always worried about the money, and money's important, but when we lose the integrity, and I just choose to believe that we're rewarded much better than much more than the financial side when we do the right thing. Right? So we screw it up every day, right? I screw it up every day, but I just try to come back and go, hey, listen, I didn't hit 10 out of 10. Will you forgive me and give me another chance, right? And then maybe they do, maybe
yes.
they don't. But as long as I have the integrity to come back and say, I recognize that I screwed up, but I want to make it right. I think it was Les Brown that said, we're all self-made, but it's only the successful that admit it, right?
Yeah, yeah. It starts with the leadership. It starts with the founder, and if he's still a part of the business, because we know founders leave businesses all the time.
Sure.
But whoever the leadership is at that time, that's where the integrity and the transparency and everything comes from, because they set that example. And so when you
Sure.
see organizations that do not represent that, right, I can just look at leadership, and that's unfortunate sometimes because
Sure.
to me it sheds a light on, all right, well, this is a representation of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at business like that, I think we would choose to support businesses differently.
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not mad. You said the founders, a lot of times, we get mad at founders who start a business and then they turn it over, they build this culture and then they leave. And that's kind of the American dream. I'm not mad at them. I mean, good for
No.
you. But what are we doing to maintain the culture if we build it under this, do the right thing culture with each other, with our customers? How do we scale that and then maintain that in our absence? And I think there's
Mhm.
very few companies that do that. Um, and I think a part of that would be, controlling what you can control. What you can control is the culture a little bit and have some influence over that, better than just not even considering it. We have a better chance of actually continuing that
Absolutely.
that mindset. But I just don't
Yeah.
think we think about it.
No, we don't. It's in the framework, right? My operations management class I'm taking right now for the MBA. One of the chapters I was reading, where it's about frameworks and how we are building towards sustainability. And so this conversation is reminding me of that. It's like yes, as a founder, more often than not, your goal is to scale it and then sell it, depending on what business you're in, right? Maybe not everybody wants to sell it, and that's completely fine. But if that is your goal, did you leave it sustainable enough for the people that took over to be able to just follow that blueprint? And that's my hope with what I'm building, right? Like my hope is that we build it sustainable enough to where if I am removed, that it just keeps going and keeps growing. Um, I think everybody would want
Yeah.
that. My hope is.
Yeah. And just a little plug for those business brokers out there. When we talk about building a business, somebody build it, we get trapped in our business. And this was the idea, and I think it was Robert Kiyosaki that talked about the cash flow quadrant. We get into this business, there's employees and then there's business owners. Well, really they're, I don't have a word, but basically the business owns you. Been in that trap. You think about a doctor, an accountant. If they don't show up, does the business continue? It doesn't. So how valuable is that business? Well, if I'm a business broker, I need you to go away as the founder and the business still have value. So when someone's found, when I've helped coach people start businesses or grow their business, the first thing I'm telling them is, what is the exit? And, are you going to pass it on to your kids? Are you going to build it and, scale it, build it and sell it? Or are you wanting to go public? What is the end goal? Because you're not really building value if you are key to the business at some point down the road, getting it off the launch pad. And then you need to become really not necessarily irrelevant, but more irrelevant. Let the system take over and build a system that, one, is profitable, two, adheres to your values, if that's important to you, right? But have that exit in mind. Build it as though you're going to sell it, even if you have no intention of selling it. Otherwise, it's far less valuable to the marketplace, right?
That's so what I'm hearing is you're moving towards the I quadrant. If we're sticking with Robert Kiyosaki for the
100%, yeah.
You're becoming an investor. Even if you stay in the business, you now understand if I am removed, that's going to still grow, and I have an investment portfolio that will continue to grow as well. You're
Absolutely,
removing yourself
yeah.
from
Regardless of whether it's a roofing company, plumbing, whatever your widget is, service, product, always be looking at the system. What is that system? Because the system is the value. I think, again, it's so overused, but McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, any of those places that have a system. Well, Ray Kroc and his family haven't flipped burgers in a lot of years, but they're doing okay. And it wasn't because Ray Kroc is there. It's because he built a system that was followed, duplicated, and multiple times. Peppered quite a bit of real estate in there too, but it was a system, not him, not sweat equity on his part. But it was my understanding that they were the largest holder of real estate in the country, with the exception of the U.S. government. So there's some percentage of Burger Kings that actually sit on McDonald's Corporation land.
Wow.
So, right.
Yeah. So
I love business. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's Cummins that's owned by Ford Motor Company. So when Cummins was moving into all those Dodge trucks, and everybody's like, "Oh, Ford's losing." They're not losing. They're buying Cummins diesels, which is owned by Ford. So, like this integration of business, when you really start to understand, it's like, man, systems, right?
So how did this? So where we are today, even this conversation, your time in the military, and then going and becoming an entrepreneur, right? Like, how did that time help you and shape you for everything you're doing now?
Sure. Well, I kind of go in reverse. One of the things when people hire me as a coach, the first thing I make them do is take an assessment. What are your strengths? And what's funny to me is how many veterans. So it's basically rates 1 through 30. I think 37. What are your top strengths? And which are natural to you. What's funny to me is how many military people think that discipline is going to be at the top of the list, and it's really in the bottom third. We think we're disciplined because when we're in the military, we're told when to get up, when to go to sleep, when to eat, what to do. We have a mission set every morning, who to report to. If this happens, then that, what's the contingency? All of that's laid out. We just need to follow the system And then to the outside world, we look very disciplined. Then you get out of the military and you're like, the world is a free, whatever. I can do whatever to a degree, right? Compared to the military. So there's this perception that we're disciplined. And what we figured out is we're not. Now, all of that to say, I was a wild child. I purposed to go in the military because I later went to college, but I didn't like it. That was not something I was able to do. That was what other kids got to do. I knew the military, my grandpa, Jake, was a World War II veteran. I heard all his stories and it inspired me to, serve my country in some way. So I joined the military for two reasons. One, because Grandpa Jake said that's how I, serve my fellow countrymen. Two, I didn't have a choice in my head. And I went to the Navy, went to boot camp. Man, I was, being told what to do, where to go. That was a tough one from a kid that basically had no real parenting other than what I did myself. And school, that structure taught me, it formed me. I had a work ethic because I had worked on farms, dairy farms growing up. So I had a real strong work ethic, but it's all just misguided, buying the wrong things, doing the wrong things with the money that I made. But then the military taught me sort of direction. And the longer I was in, the more disciplined I became. People ask me all the time, which career was better, the Navy or the Army? And the reality is that the Navy was really about just sort of finding myself, and the Army was really about career. And I ultimately got, hurt and sent back into the civilian world. But it shaped me into realizing I had to have a system in really every area of my life. And not that we're, these robots, but in my business, in my, my work, my work life, my home life, like everything was integrated. The military really taught me how to do that and to get up every day, do the things that needed to be done, from the simple little make your bed to, I don't like doing accounting, right? But it has to be done, right? Yeah. So do I do it myself or do I hire somebody? Well, until you can afford to hire somebody, you're it, do it. Mm-hmm. So doing those things that you don't want to do, that's what the military taught me. It also taught me, resiliency. Hurry up and wait. That's a phrase that's used in the military quite a bit. Hurry up, be prepared, then you're going to sit. But when the moment comes, you're already there, prepared and ready to go. In business, when you apply that, pays dividends over and over and over. So I think that's the thing that it taught me. Always being ready for the worst case scenario was another thing. And when you do that in the military, that costs lives. So it's very, very real. And very right in front of you. When you do it in the business world, that result could be a financial crash. It could be, all those things. And I think the last thing I think I would touch on, we went through 08, 09. All of my competitors were cavitating. They were just going backwards. We were growing. And it was weird because we used that guerrilla marketing tactic, like how we would squeeze every ounce of usefulness out of every dollar that we had in advertising. We didn't take out the big bank loans like a lot of them did. So when their banks were coming in, I bought everything cash. And when they were, getting rid of everything from forklifts to pallets, all of the equipment, I'm buying it on the cheap because I did everything with cash. So I didn't have all the new shiny objects, but at the end of the day, I got to stay in business. So I think that had it not been for the military and sort of growing up, squeezing every resource for every ounce of what I could get out of it. I learned that as a kid. The military really taught me how to systemize that. And then going into business, man, it continues to serve me today.
Yeah, man, I could literally sit here all day and just keep picking your brain. For those that are listening, they can tell why you coach other people, why people seek you out, right?
Yes.
Talk to me about what you are doing in the coaching world right now. If you have any current offerings, what that looks like.
Yeah. So I do have a 12-week program that people can go to, and they can find me, Coach Jim Shields, Instagram, all of the socials. If you find me out there, you can go to jimshieldscoach.com, find me on there, there's several offerings. The first, really the big package right now, those who are starting out and they don't know where to start, We walk you through from filing your business all the way through to let's get you your first 6 and 7 figures, right? Those that are in business, they're struggling to grow. They don't know how to get to that next place. We're walking through the same program. We're just, so it's a 12-week boot camp. Been to boot camp twice. So I designed it around that 12-week boot camp idea. We're going to get really real about where you want to go. What are your real talents? And that's that assessment in the beginning. And then we're going to really hone in on those skill sets so that you are daily practicing that those things that you're really strong at. Think Michael Jordan and, him doing the dunk, Larry Bird for the old folks that, the free throw. Guy couldn't miss. Why? He didn't play baseball. He was good at basketball. So let's not, if you're not good at organizing and accounting, let's delegate that and then focus on what you're really strong at. So it's a 12-week boot camp. We have several different ways to enter that. So just get in touch with me through one of my social media platforms and, DM there. Let's figure out if it works. I have a school community. It's $27 a month. Legitimately, you get in there. We meet once a week, and for $27 a month, you just once a week sitting down for an hour with business minds, people that are going through some of the same stuff you're going through. If you're on first base, you're going to talk to people that are on third base. You get the idea. So it's in the school community, again, for $27 a month. You can't beat it. Great minds working to help each other. Iron sharpening iron. Again, those great people sewing into one another. We learn. Sometimes the room needs you. Sometimes you need the room. So we're always learning in that school community. So
thank you for sharing that. So if we could leave our audience with just a piece of advice that you have, Jim's wisdom, that's what we'll call it. Jim's wisdom. What would that be?
I feel like it's overdone, but just start, right? And it doesn't matter where you are. There's somebody that has it worse than you, doing better than you, because they dared to believe it was possible, right? And they just started. And it's going to be ugly when you start. Just assume that, right? I just started doing these lives, and I have a coach, right? We all should have a coach. And I went to my coach. I said, I did the live. I screwed it up. He said, bro, you can't screw it up. Just start. You're going to fumble. You're going to fall. You didn't know how to swim until you learned how to swim. You didn't know how to ride a bike. Going into business, be smart about it. Mitigate your risk by going in, hiring a coach, getting information, good information. So believe that it can happen. And then the other thing I would say to you too, the other piece of advice, and this was, I think that paid dividends to me over and over and over. If I have a plumbing problem in my house, I'm going to use a metaphor here. If I have a plumbing problem in my house, I don't call a bunch of electricians to fix my plumbing problem. So if I want to start a business, why do I call and talk to all of my friends and family who have had jobs their whole life to ask them how to start a business? They have no idea, and they think you're crazy for doing it. Statistically, 97% of the country at 65 is dependent on some third party, whether it's government or something else, family, to live on. 3% are independently wealthy. What that says to me is that if you say, I have this business idea and I really feel like I can take it to the moon, right? And really be successful at it, and you tell 100 people, 97 of them are going to tell you you're crazy. Only 3 are going to tell you, you know what? Here's how I would tweak that to make it better. So why are we listening to the 97? Dare to believe it's possible, and then go find the 3 that have already done what you want to do and spend as much time with them as you can and make it grow.
Wow. There you have it,
Make it
ladies and
happen.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
Make it happen. If you're
Make it
sitting
happen.
on this, if you're sitting on that goal, that dream, my hope for you is after this conversation, you feel that ember burning just a little bit brighter now, right? Jim, you already mentioned where people can find you on social media. So thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, if there was anything that you took from this episode, my ask is that you please share, please like, and please subscribe. We put a new episode out every Wednesday, and this is our way of giving back to you. Jim, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Christopher.
Until next time, I love y'all. Peace.